To record this video, I strapped my iPhone to my chest. I don't know, I'm fairly happy with the results, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments. So why ride a motorbike later in life? I rode motorbikes in my teens. I got my light bike licence before I got my car licence at 15 years of age. My first bike was a 67 Honda 50 Super Sport. Because it couldn't get me up Rattray Street, which my school was on, it was a pretty steep hill in Dunedin, back in New Zealand. I often had to do a U-turn and make a second run at it. Now, students from 3 different colleges walked up that hill to get to school each morning, so it was pretty embarrassing when I needed to do that U-turn. Anyway, I soon swapped my Honda 50 for a Kawasaki 80 trail bike. It was low geared and could fly up that hill. I rode bikes in my teens because my mates did. And bikes gave us the freedom to enjoy, the freedom to travel further than we could in our push bikes. G'day, I'm Barry. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to any new subscribers, Ham and Libby, and welcome also to my grandkids, all of them. But especially I know the ones down in Albany that are often watching, Miller, Kai and Sunny. Now, at 64 years of age, I decided to buy a motorbike after not having owned one for almost 30 years. It's funny because my youngest daughter was quite surprised that I bought this bike, as she had no memories of me riding a bike and didn't even think I had a license to ride one. Well, what happened was I'd actually been looking at getting an electric bike, but the prices were right up there, and then I started looking at the different motorbikes that were out and about, and for a long time I've liked the Royal Enfields. Well, I fell in love with a red and chrome 2022 Royal Enfield Classic 350 Reborn, a suitable bike for a rider who was also reborn. I clocked up 100 kilometres in the first day of ownership and have really enjoyed the experience of owning this bike. After owning this bike for about a year or so, I felt I needed something a bit bigger. So I bought a 2000 Kawasaki W650. Not as pretty as my Royal Enfield, but again, I fell in love with its classic old school styling. Now, after about another year went by, I bought a 2009 Triumph Bonneville T100. Another beautifully styled bike, and it's the one I'm riding on today in this video. It's funny because since I've bought these bikes, I've had different reactions from different people. About a year ago, I caught up with an old mate of mine when we were in our teens. He used to ride a Kawasaki 350 Triple, a really quick bike. I asked him if he'd ever consider buying another bike, but he said he wouldn't, as he felt the roads in Perth were just too busy and too dangerous to ride a bike on. Roughly 3 months ago, I attended a heart checkup at a local hospital, and the nurse, upon seeing me come in with my motorbike helmet, said to me, you like living on the edge, eh? I just had a little laugh. But yeah, I've never considered myself to be living on the edge because I ride a bike. But anyway, then a couple of years back, I put up photos of bikes I liked on my Facebook page after completing the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. And a friend from back in New Zealand commented saying that he would love to get a bike again. Now, not long after, his wife private messaged me, and jokingly, asked that I didn't encourage her husband any further about getting a bike as she didn't want him to have one. So these experiences beg the question, should I be riding a motorbike at my age on these busy roads? Is it too risky riding a motorbike? Well, yes, it is risky. However, I feel personally that as an older rider, I do more to negate the risk than I would have when I was younger. Look, with decades of car driving experience behind me and 19 years of that spent driving police cars, I'm more aware of the risks of being on the road. I believe the more I ride, the safer I am, as I'm always building on my experience and skills. Prior to purchasing the Royal Enfield, I spent a lot of time on YouTube watching videos that taught safe riding techniques. And I've carried on watching those videos since. And I believe that my riding skills have come a long way in the 3 years since I bought that bike. I would be devastated if I could no longer ride my bikes. This realisation hit me about 18 months ago when I ended up in hospital with serious heart issues and needing a pacemaker. I thought that could have been the end of my riding, but luckily it wasn't. I get so much enjoyment from riding a bike. You know the saying, it's not about the destination, it's the journey that counts. This is so true when riding a bike. You need to be totally focused on your riding and your surroundings. Something that you don't necessarily, or you're not so connected with your surroundings when you're driving in a car. I remember about a year after I bought the Kawasaki, I did a trip down to Albany to see my son and his family, and it was a 600 kilometre trip there on the first day. Now, by the time I got to my destination, my eyes were red, not from the wind, but from being so focused for so long. This brings me to another reason for owning a bike. Our physical fitness declines as we get older, and you need to have a certain amount of fitness to ride a bike, especially on longer rides. I know that in order to keep riding, I need to keep up my fitness routine. It's a win-win. Another reason for riding a bike or owning a bike, riding a motorbike has opened up new social circles. I've met some great people through the local motorcycle men's shed, which organises rides and coffee catch-ups here in Perth. Recently I met this random guy who had parked his Kawasaki next to my Royal Enfield. And we got chatting, and he ended up giving me his business card, suggesting that if I ever want to join him for a ride, to just give him a text. Riding a motorbike really does give you a sense of freedom. I think this applies to riders of any age. I experience the same sense of freedom now at 67 as I did at 17. It's so much more freeing than driving a car. A tank of gas is all you need to go on an adventure. When I was a teenager, I remember reading an article in a Two Wheels magazine about some guy who rode around Australia on a Suzuki 125. I dreamt about doing something like this for years. But then marriage and kids and other responsibilities came along and the dream was forgotten until I got another bike. Now, I'm probably past circumnavigating Australia on a motorbike, but a bit of motorbike camping with a mate still seems like fun to me. The last reason I'm going to mention is stress relief. There is no better way to clear the mind than hopping onto your motorbike and going for a ride, especially in the country. It really is bliss. It reminds me of the joy I experienced from gardening. You just get lost in what you're doing and feel so much better for it afterwards. Now, I hope you've got something from this video, but I would really love to hear about your experiences. What have they been like with bikes? Are you a biker reborn like myself? I'd love to hear your story. Thanks for watching. Bye.